Well, good morning, people. It is another Monday, week 4 of Performing Arts Summer Camp, and yep, 7 a.m., which means I'm on the 405, about to run into major traffic, as expected. But anyway, how are you crazy people? I feel like it's been an eternity since I've been in this car, and I realize why. We had July 4th was on Thursday, and I was actually not scheduled to work on Friday, so I ended up having inadvertently a 4-day weekend, which, like you do any weekend, you end up catching up on work that you weren't able to do during the work week. Lots of cleaning, but there was a bit of enjoyment too. July 4th was pretty cool, but before I go into that, I definitely would like to send a shout out to everyone who's on their way to Casper, Wyoming for the Women on Wheels International Ride-In, which is slated to begin tomorrow and go through Thursday. Of course, it's another year that I'm unable to make it because of life, and I just don't have the time or the money. Actually, to be honest with you guys, I was slated to go. I was planning to go, but it turned out that getting into a car accident really kind of messes up your plans, and that ended up taking a big hit on my income. So I ended up having to switch a few things around and return to working summer camp again because I just couldn't take this time off. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to leave and go to Casper. I'm not really sure when the next year's ride-in for 2020 is. I really would like to make 2020, and I have no idea where it's going to be. It usually gets announced on Wednesday or Thursday of the ride-in of the previous year. So I'm about to find out soon where 2020 will be. And if anything, I'm going to find out probably on Facebook and then set my plans accordingly. Knowing the pattern of where these ride-in locations are usually held, last year it was held in Johnson City, Tennessee, which from Los Angeles is approximately 2,200 miles. And the biggest thing that bums me out about not being able to make it to Casper, Wyoming, is that from here it's only 1,100 miles away, which is the closest that the ride-in is ever going to be to me for the foreseeable future. So it actually bums me out that when it's the closest way. Yeah, it's week 4 already, Christy. I know, it's week 4. We're gonna make it. It's okay. But to put in perspective how close the ride-in is to Los Angeles. Keep in mind that I rode to Oregon last month, and that just to get up there was approximately 1,100 miles. So basically, if I had changed my route ever so slightly and took 2 different freeways, that exact same distance I would have been in Casper, Wyoming, like right now. It bums me out every year that I can never make it, and it's something that was an ongoing traditional ride for me every summer when I was still. When I was still able to ride like that crazily in the summertime, and it just bums me out. But I'll get through it. It's just another work week for me. This is a show week, which means that we're going to be holding final performances on Friday, which means I am working all the way through Friday, and all that fun jazz. So it's basically you just gotta do the best you can here, and there's that. But, with July 4th, I did get to enjoy a bit of the fireworks and stuff. I will have to say, though, that in previous years, people have been very inconsiderate and, shooting off fireworks well into, 2, 3 in the morning on the morning of July 5th. This particular week was kind of nice because I ended up not having to listen to those fireworks after about 1:45 in the morning. So people were a lot more considerate. Either that or the sheriffs were running around watching people. So I can only hope that, that kind of vigilance was, actually, effective in that sense. But yeah, I got to make my lumpia, and I, went with a couple friends and took an Uber because parking is a bitch, and as traffic is about to be in just a second. As you can see here, I am just passing LAX, and this is where the stoppage begins, and this is the part where I crawl and contemplate my life choices on live video. So, Yahoo, this is going to be a while. Anyway, Thursday was fun. Got to enjoy all that, and just hanging out with friends and catching up on things. And then Friday was another one of those relaxo days. I finally got to watch Spider-Man: Far From Home, which, if you haven't seen it yet, it's definitely one of the better Spider-Man movies that I've seen. I think that I would probably put it at least in the top 3 in the Spider-Man franchise, it always throws me off every time I see the Sony Pictures logo come up, but I realize it's Sony. That's the only Marvel entity Sony owns, so it throws me off. It's like, yeah, Spider-Man's not going to make any money, so yeah, we're not going to sell that off. Like, really? Actually, I think the story goes is that Sony Pictures was offered the entire Marvel catalog, but they only picked up Spider-Man because they thought that the rest of them weren't going to make any money. I think that's the story that I understand. So that's kind of funny and ironic at the same time. But aside from the Spider-Man movie, I'm in El Segundo. I'm eating dinner with my friend, and we're over at the Point, over at Hop Dottie, and eating burgers, having some fries, right, whatever, chatting, and then I start feeling the shaking in the ground. And that's, if you guys have heard about that 7.1 earthquake that hit Ridgecrest for the second time. Yeah. We were feeling it all the way in El Segundo. And it was one of those kind of like rolling waves on a tropical shore kind of thing. So here I am feeling the ground kind of just do the shaky under me. And I'm watching up, and there's the lamp swaying back and forth. And there's the drinks in the bar just kind of jiggling. And we're just sitting there, and, you don't hear any screaming in the restaurant. Everyone's just kind of like, is that an earthquake? Like, people are, like, double-checking themselves. Like, is this an earthquake? Is this really happening? And, this goes on for at least 20, 25 seconds. I mean, this was not, like, one of those little, like, short shakies. Like, this one actually just kept going. So, like, we had more than enough time to double-check ourselves and wonder if it's us or if it's the Earth. And knowing that, I hadn't been drinking because I was on a motorcycle, so it's not like I do drink. I'm sipping on some, spiked water. No, seriously, it had ice in it. I'm like, nope, that's the Earth. That's the Earth moving. That's great. So yes, cue up that Carole King song, right? Well, at least the Dodgers organist did that, but. Yeah, that was interesting. I'm thinking, okay, well, this is making for an interesting night. So then, we go next door to ArcLight, where we're going to go watch this movie. And it's a good, we're sitting watching the movie, about 20 minutes left. And this is completely unrelated issue, not related to the earthquake. But the projector just decides to go, bleh, gone. Sound's gone, picture's gone. It's like it just had like this blue screen of death. And I'm like, this is the first time that it's ever happened to me while sitting at ArcLight, of all places. Because, I mean, if you are familiar with ArcLight theaters, that's like pretty much like the Cadillac of theaters. If you're, in terms of a chain, it's a higher end chain. Like, they have a bar, they have, all sorts of, like, it's a bit pricey to go to ArcLight, but they take pride in the quality of their picture. So, you can't really take pride in the quality of a picture when the picture disappears. Anyway, they get this thing up and running within about 5 minutes. I don't know what happened. I mean, I was thinking, do we just have a power outage? Are we going 2 for 2 on random things just to happen to us today? Just turns out that somebody probably tripped on something. So, it's okay. We finished the movie. It was entertaining. It stayed for the 2 end credits. You need to stay for the 2 end credits. It's pretty trippy. Definitely is some good foreshadowing for the next installment whenever that happens. And, and then at the end, when we were leaving, we got free passes to go to another movie of our choice at ArcLight, as a sorry for the inconvenience. This isn't the first time that this has happened to me, actually. About a year ago, I would say about a year and a half ago, I was over at Pacific Theaters at the Grove, and was watching Kingsman 2. And turned out that, like, somewhere about a third into the movie, the picture completely froze. Now, I mean, obviously, these kind of things wouldn't happen if movies were distributed in traditional reel form, but obviously everything now is digitally projected, so it's usually off of like a DVD, or actually it's a Blu-ray, and it's projected off. So pretty much it's a computer issue when that happens, or if the machine decides to freeze or fail like that. Anyway, about a third into the movie of Kingsman 2, it froze, and I ended up getting a free pass to that, which then turned around and watched Jumanji, which was also a good movie. I actually thought that the remake was pretty good. In regards to Spider-Man movies, I'm a little behind on them, okay? I've seen all three of the Tobey Maguire ones, so Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, but I've not seen any of the ones by Andrew Garfield. Andrew Garfield is Spider-Man, I've not seen him. So I'm missing like 2 movies in the Spider-Man franchise, and not sure. I mean, I could take an opinion, because I mean, obviously I can get them off of like I'd say Netflix or Redbox or whatever, some sort of place. Maybe I should just go up to Bend, Oregon again and just go get it on DVD at the Blockbuster. But anyway, yeah, I think Spider-Man Far From Home was definitely a good one, and it's one of those movies where you have had to have watched at least Avengers Infinity War to get the jokes for like the first part of the movie. That's the best way I can explain that. So, that was pretty good. Aside from that, I mean, Saturday, ended up watching the UFC fight. That was interesting because of the 5-second knockout. If you don't know what I'm talking about, like, get on Twitter or Google, but trying to remember the dude's name. But basically, yeah, one dude flying knee to the face took out another guy in less than 5 seconds. It's the fastest knockout in UFC history. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't think I would be still, conscious if I took a knee to the face. And then a couple jabs once I'm down. That wasn't cool, but hey, sometimes you just need a couple insurance punches. That's how fighting works, right? Just after he's down, smack him a few times, make sure he's not breathing. That's usually how that all works out. Yeah. I think that, but yeah, in regards to the upcoming week, it's, looking forward to just getting through it, I mean, it's one of those times where, you're left a little uneasy because of all of this earthquake stuff, and, my commentary is this, and, for my out-of-state people who are watching, I'd often been asked when I was still living in Ohio is, would I rather live in Ohio? Well, let's not answer that immediately. Or would I go back to California with all of its earthquakes? And I'll tell you this. The thing about earthquakes, when they hit California, is that they're extremely random. It is in a reaction to, Earth movement. And the thing is, Earth movement is so erratic and slow that, you can go many, many years without having to deal with the aftermath of an earthquake. Case in point is that when the 6.6 hit, or 6.8, or whatever the first one was, last week, that was the first time that we had received anything that strong since the Northridge earthquake in 1994. I was 10. Actually, technically I was 9 because it was January of 1994. My birthday's in November, so I was 9 at the time. So to imagine this is to go 25 years without having to deal with a noticeable earthquake that would cause or any sort of damage or even have a possible threat on human life. It took 25 years for that to come back. Or 20, or depending on where you're living in California, 20 to 25 years. When I was living in Ohio, I have stories about multiple wind warnings that have knocked out power and forced me to not have to go to work for 2 straight days. And the rain was so bad, and we would get floods and everything, and all hell would break loose. And if we even had to deal with, snow warnings when I was still working retail, the only thing I would hope for is if we ever got stranded in a snowstorm that I would be at work, because at least I would be stuck at a grocery store. So to answer the question of would I rather live in California for the earthquakes or would I rather live back in the Midwest for basically tornadoes and, God getting mad at us, I would personally just go for the earthquakes. I think that, it's kind of a return on investment. I understand that it's very expensive to live here and everything like that, but when you think about the other things that we get here in California, such as nice weather and, the fact that those kinds of like natural occurrences such as rain, snow, sleet, hail, that kind of thing, I never have to think about weather as a deterring factor in regards to my activities on any given day. And I think that's probably one of the beautiful things about living in California. And I get to ride my motorcycle every day, and I get to pretty much navigate traffic like a European here. So personally, I think I'll stick here. If anything, and we get hit with an earthquake that's really, really bad, have to realize that if you're in a super populated area, the chances of your utilities and everything else being restored are probably more likely to be restored sooner than you would be if you were living in a rural area. That's just my opinion on that. I think that having, experienced other parts of the country, I think that I've just gotten so used to the urban/suburban life here and the culture and the way that things are is that, this region, this general region is where I would prefer to hang my hat. But of course, I'm always open to traveling other places for just a short period of time. So yeah, that's my opinion on that. I mean, I'm hoping that the shockwaves, end or at least dissipate to where, they're not as noticeable. But, that we're in for a little bit of a wallop when the aftershock of the first earthquake is stronger than the original earthquake itself. And that's when it gets a little weird. But yeah, it does leave people a little uneasy, though. I did swing by Major Surplus over in Gardena, which is a Army surplus store and they do camping and stuff like that. And I swung by there on Saturday after hanging out with my other friend for some takoyakis and some Japanese food. And there were more people than normal there. I wouldn't say that the place was packed, but you could tell that a lot of them were gravitating toward the emergency food section. And I will admit that I went there and I picked up a couple things to have, just on emergency, in addition to the dry goods that are already in my pantry. I mean, I don't need to really overload on food or anything like that, but and also invested in one of those single burner butane stoves because you never know. And also, I've always wanted one. That's something that I've been thinking about long before an earthquake because, you could take that thing anywhere and, cook. So, yeah, I picked up one of those butane stoves for less than $20 and, a couple cans of butane fuel, which is like $2 a pop. And so, it just doesn't hurt to have one of those in there and just as an extra supply. So that was a nice thing to have. So yeah, it's always a good idea anyway to have a surplus, regardless of, nature of emergency or anything like that. You got a few pallets of water, have a few pallets of water. You've got, you're always going to need water. And unfortunately for me, I don't have access to a reverse osmosis filter. But so the next best thing is just a bunch of bottles. And yes, I do recycle all the bottles, but it's not the most efficient thing for me environmentally, but convenience-wise, it's kind of like that pro and con. It's like, what can you do about it? Aside from that, I just doing a lot more cleaning here. I think I'd put a Facebook post up later to see if anyone would be interested. Well, of course, for the exchange of food and or alcohol to help me mop the floor of my house. It's I definitely need to do that. It's one of those kind of things when it comes to maintenance that I'm kind of on my own for that. So any sort of help would be appreciated. And I'll put that post up eventually when I can actually garner up the funds to do that. Yeah, it's a little tight in the summer. I'm just trying to do my best here, and I'm still searching for more of a full-time position that suits me. And as much as I'm not rushing the process, it would definitely be nice to find something that's more relevant to, that degree I just finished. but I'll get there eventually. Well, and other than that, I mean, that's pretty much all I have today. As expected, I'm just passing Howard Hughes and still crawling along here. Heading to Studio City first, and then switching it around again. I am actually heading to Chatsworth second. So this is another odd Monday, but kind of have to do it because of the type of supplies that are in my vehicle right now. So anyway, I'm gonna sign off here and throw some heavy metal on to try to stay awake. Be good out there. Don't do anything crazy that you can't get on camera. No, well, keep it legal. All that fun stuff. And yeah, be kind, rewind. And I hope the rest of your week goes well. So, any questions and comments and anything that you'd like me to address in the next live broadcast, please feel free to put them in the comments. I do read them. And I will talk to you all later.